Hey guys, thanks for stopping by to watch another video here at All I See Is W. In today's video, I'll be covering the latest updates with the Bitcoin market along with Wall Street. I'll be also covering my technical analysis of Bitcoin and MicroStrategy stock, what my price predictions are. Most of you are wondering what's going to be coming out in the remainder of March and the rest of 2025. Are we at the end of the Bitcoin bull cycle, or are we still in that bull cycle and we're not bullish enough? I'll be covering all of those updates. And if you're new to this channel, first off, I would really appreciate the like, turn on the bell notification, and subscribe for more related content. Let's begin, guys. Let's cover the technical analysis of price of Bitcoin. Now, with the start of Wall Street today, Bitcoin price started retracing down, and all of this news was attributed to just tariff talks again. We're seeing Trump leveraging tariffs imposed on Europe regarding the imports of alcohol with wine and all that after Europe was trying to impose tax on American whiskey. So we continue to see this battle out between all the big time countries right now. And that's driving a lot of fear and uncertainty with Wall Street and the Bitcoin price, which is why we see this retracement here. However, we're beginning to see some nice consolidation up. Just looking at it from near term perspective, we see moving average here, 9 day versus 21-day moving average. We see that blue cross here, which is a good indicator sign. What we currently see is, price of Bitcoin at $81,717. Key thing is we saw that retracement support level all the way to like 77,000. Hopefully we don't see Bitcoin drop below that. It's very possible that it can. However, it's all really driven based on what we see with the Wall Street. Hopefully, we continue to see continuous consolidation, but I'm thinking that we may very well just continue to hover, and we may very well potentially see the next leg up here with the price of Bitcoin. I'm thinking as we transition, get more towards the end phase of March, April, we may very well break through getting back into that 90,000, 100,000. That'll be a good case scenario here. Let's talk about the why I believe that's the case. So we're looking at the Bitcoin rainbow price chart here. So where we are right now with the actual price of Bitcoin right now, we're basically at that buy range, and right below that it's basically a fire sale here. So given the fact that we're in that buy phase, which you see here in that legend, we haven't even got to that accumulation stage and then to the still cheap phase. And once we get into the yellow phase, that's like the hodl. So you see that price, between 184, 250. And then is this a bubble here in orange with darker orange? FOMO intensifies. And as we get to the RSI, relative strength, getting very high where it's overbought, that's when we're in that maximum bubble territory. But you look at the previous Bitcoin halving event, post 2020, what happened? We saw that run up. What happened in the prior halving event? We saw that huge run up. What happened in the prior halving event? We consistently saw that Bitcoin run up here. So what we are seeing here is historically based on the last three, data points of halving events that occur every 4 years, Bitcoin is bound to have a breakout session. So there's lots of analysts forecasting that Bitcoin is going to break through 150, $200,000. In fact, there's other analysts forecasting that even in 2025, we can't rule out the possibility of $250,000. I think what we're seeing right now is just the quick shakeouts, because when there's shakeouts, that's when, there's going to be that run up prices, all attributed to, what we're seeing just based on historical events as well as the driving factors. We'll cover that as well. One of the driving factors that we have to keep in mind is the leading variable here, which is the global M2 money supply. Key takeaway is Although we see the price of Bitcoin dropping, retracing to around the low 80,000, just recently since March timeframe, M2 global supply has increased significantly, and Bitcoin is heavily correlated with global supply. When you have more liquidity, more money from the entire world, that's when that's going to drive up the price of Wall Street as Bitcoin price. So the downside is that there's going to be a lag time of like 8 weeks for Bitcoin price to follow. But this is a good leading indicator here, seeing M2 money supply continue to increase here. And as we look at just what's going on in the stock market, I think one of the key things we have to keep in mind is just recently CPI data. We see improvement there along with PPI not increasing. So that's a good sign as well. I think what is the main variable right now is just the fear, uncertainty around tariffs and how that may create more economic slowdown. But I think key thing here is M2 money supply is continuing to increase here. Now we're looking at, just the overall states right now. I mean, orange is truly the new black. In fact, one of the interesting things that I see with progression here is California is now proposing a strategic Bitcoin reserve as well. So eventually, the states that remain black are just going to be left behind while all these states race towards proposing crypto, Bitcoin to really combat against inflation. As we look at the state reserve race, you see here Arizona, I mean, getting very close to that finish line of enacting SBR here. You also have Texas. They've ramped up very quickly here. So, catching up very soon with Arizona, but everyone is, all eyes looking at Texas because Texas is the big time state that generates so much revenue. You know that Tesla is at Texas, along with a lot of Bitcoin miners, artificial intelligence with the Stargate project. So I think there's a lot of investment in Texas, which is why Strategic Bitcoin Reserve is ramping up very quickly there. There's this posting here in that President Trump's administration, they just opened up and said that the USA will be buying as much Bitcoin as possible. What does that mean? We may very well see a supply shock coming. Yes, just with the near term, we see uncertainty with Wall Street and Bitcoin price, but I think this is huge sentiment here. The government is eventually going to buy up, a million Bitcoins. Is it going to be more than a million Bitcoins? This is really bullish news here. I mean, especially with the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, as well as the 2025 Bitcoin Act implemented by Cynthia Lummis. Here's breaking news, just providing more context here in that, the Trump team, they want to buy, more Bitcoin versus just holding on to 200,000 Bitcoin that they've already have in place. But a White House official told a room of crypto industry leaders this week that there should be no limit to the size of a U.S. government strategic Bitcoin reserve. There you go. Also, here, Senator Cynthia Lummis' strategic Bitcoin reserve is now available on Congress government's website here under S 954, trying to get a strategic Bitcoin reserve to offset the costs for the Federal Reserve System. This is really going to combat inflation and the US deficit here. So big milestone achievement here. And hopefully we get this approved moving forward, passing the Senate and the House. With this posting here, BlackRock, we know BlackRock is like the biggest financial institution around the world. They created, ETFs for Bitcoin. That's IBIT. There's been so much money inflows, but you also see BlackRock hedging, buying up MicroStrategy. Why? Because BlackRock, they realize that MicroStrategy is one of the ultimate hedge towards Bitcoin. So having that dual effect combination, acquiring, you know, more MSTR shares. That's just huge conviction here. Now owning up to 5% of MSTR's total shares. I think, they've ramped up to 9.4 to 11.2 million shares of MSTR. Big time move here from the big time financial institutions. So Michael Saylor just said that Bitcoin is about to become the largest asset in the world in the next 48 months. So breaking through gold at one point, currently gold is 19 trillion. Bitcoin is close to 2 trillion, but eventually in the next, 4 years, we're going to see Bitcoin become number one in terms of largest asset in the world. He is signaling the collapse of fiat credibility and the rise of digital energy as sovereign collateral. So, what does this mean? How I look at it is that eventually, after all of these audits at Fort Knox and auditing the digital uh, currency assets that the government holds, this is where the government is really going to negotiate and try to propose to reallocate all of their gold certificates or a majority of it to convert that to buy Bitcoin, keep it under, their wallets and have, Bitcoin appreciate over time. So what does this mean? MSTR is now a sovereign monetary proxy. It's already outpacing the entire central banks in capital stewardship. When governments realize that MSTR is effectively front-running nation states in the accumulation of the hardest asset ever created, geopolitics will shift overnight. Expect this. Foreign treasuries and sovereign wealth funds will race to acquire Bitcoin either directly or by proxy through Bitcoin treasury companies like MSTR. BRICS nations already seeking de-dollarization will accelerate their Bitcoin integration to create alternative reserve structures untethered from the Western fiat cartel. Geoeconomic realignment nations with weak currencies will adopt Bitcoin as strategic insurance against USD decay. This won't be just El Salvador, it will be Argentina, Nigeria, Turkey, even outlier EU states. BlackRock, MSTR, and nation states will become indistinguishable players in the monetary power game. Saylor saw through the future and capitulated himself to the leader in the race. Lovely picture here from Saylor AI clip here. Let's take a look at technicals. Most of you are wondering, what is the technicals? What is the price movements telling us here? So I think a lot of, traders of MSTR, whether you're a long investor, a swing trader, or a day trader here, just looking at where the price movement is showing, where the momentum is going is, we continue to see the relative strength at one point is hugely oversold back in late February. But what are we seeing? We're beginning to see RSI relative strength consistently go up. Volume wise, we see, just consistent volume here. We haven't seen a major uptick yet. So I think as soon as we get any news, any drive up with the price of Bitcoin with more volume, we're going to see some intense volume pickup here. I think at one point RSI is going to start picking up here, but the key support and resistance level here is, we don't want to see MSTR price get, around the $200 range. But I think as soon as we see price of MSTR, depending on how fast it can break through this barrier here, we see resistance, around the 330, 340. As soon as it breaks through that, I think that's where it's really to reassess to see how much power it has to start running back up here. I think one of the key things is, having the moving average cross from near term to medium term. Hopefully, we see that blue crossing. The last time we saw that 9 to 21 day moving average cross was around early February. So it's been, 6 weeks out already without a crossing. So I'm thinking we're at that point where we're going to see that crossing very soon. And once we do so, I think price of MSTR is going to start running back up into that mid 300s, get into that 400, whether that's end of March. I do think that we're going to see some bullish movements with April, all driven from the price of Bitcoin. We're not out of the woods yet. We don't know where the market is headed, but I do think that there's so much upside with the price of Bitcoin. We're just shaking out certain, retails right now, but Bitcoin can very well just start running up here very quickly. So with that, the technicals, I want to share a quick video clip of Saylor.
If you own 5% of Manhattan and your family owned it for 100 years and someone said, how are you going to pay your bills? You wouldn't say, we're just going to sell it. You would say, we're going to rent it. We're going to develop it. We're going to put a building on top of it, a business on top of it, or we're going to finance it. We're going to borrow against it. The same is true with Bitcoin. In 20 years, the United States could be generating $10 trillion per year by renting, developing, or financing the assets in that strategic Bitcoin reserve. The AIs are coming. The AIs don't get bank accounts. They don't get credit cards. The AIs, the artificial intelligence economy, will be built on digital capital, digital property. It'll be $100 trillion economy. It'll be built on Bitcoin.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, first off, thanks for watching. I would really appreciate the subscribe and like. Let me know what your thoughts are. Thanks. I'll see you on the next one.